Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. I know there's some people still logging in, but I thought we'd jump right in and get started. I'd first like to introduce myself. My name is Jennifer Barba, and I'm a part of the MIT Sloan admissions team. As a part of my role, I help to manage the evaluation process for the Business Analytics program, or the Master of Business Analytics program at MIT Sloan. I'm also joined by a number of my colleagues today who are kind of behind the scenes, but here to help answer all of the questions that you have. If I could just quickly introduce them: Katie Radall, also a Senior Associate Director of Admissions, Patricia Chen, also part of the admissions committee on the admissions team, as well as Reed Swain, part of the admissions team. We're all here to support the business analytics admissions process. And, during the course of the chat today, I do have some slides to review in terms of some program overview, as well as an update or some tips for the application process. And then I'll take live questions towards the end. But during the course of our conversation, feel free to type in questions through the Q&A function, and we will get to them as quickly as we can. All right, so as I explained before, we'll just give a quick overview of the program, talk a bit about the admissions criteria and some tips for the process. So as you may be aware, the Business Analytics program is a 12-month program that provides a deep dive in a technical training of data science. We are a unique program that sort of combines, this deep dive into data science along with, the business skills and tools that you'll need for, using that analysis to influence business decisions. We have a close collaboration and partnership, not only with the Sloan School, but also with MIT's Operations Research Center, which focuses on PhD students who are doing research, as well as a handful of master's students that you'll be working closely with. So here's just a bit of a profile of the current class for the MBAn program. That's the acronym we use to talk about the business analytics program. So this is as of this fall. We have 60 students currently enrolled in the program, and the goal for next year is to enroll a class of similar size. Students represent an average of 15 months of work experience, which does include internships. So another way to think about this is about 80% of the students come into this program directly from their undergraduate studies, only having had internship work experience, while about 20% or so have had experience in a full-time capacity after graduating. We have an incredibly diverse class with over 23 countries represented. Students represent undergraduate majors, primarily from the STEM fields, but also economics and business is represented as well. The class is 70% students with citizenship from outside of the United States. And then certainly academics are strong with undergraduate GPA and GRE quant scores represented here. In terms of the way the program is structured, I mentioned before, it's a 12-month program. So it starts in September and it wraps up the following August. So the fall semester is your required core curriculum. You'll be taking classes in machine learning, advanced analytics, optimization methods. You'll be, asked to, dive deep into computer programming languages like R, Python, SQL, and Julia. And then you'll have a communication seminar. And then beyond the fall semester, you gain a little bit more flexibility to kind of customize your degree to meet your specific career and personal motivations for pursuing the program. The winter term, or January at MIT, we call it Independent Activities Period, will give you an opportunity to take a class in ethics and data privacy, as well as do a bit more of some boot camp style training to prepare you for recruiting, professional recruiting and career development. And then as you get into the spring semester, you work through a number of different elective choices. You have sort of an umbrella of choices you can select from that span not only electives at the Sloan School, but also across MIT. as well as you start beginning work with your capstone project. So that's really, kind of the unique value proposition of this program, giving you the opportunity for a 10-week capstone project that takes place in the summer after the spring semester. Yet during the spring semester, you work in a team of 2 with your capstone company to kind of dissect a bit about the problem that they're asking you to research and resolve, and then you'll work with them for 10 weeks over the summer term. And then something that's also quite unique about, we'll go back to this for a second, that's quite unique about the capstone project is that it gives you a $20,000 offset in your tuition due to that 10-week internship towards the end of the program. And then, this is just kind of a slide that helps to kind of summarize some of the different career paths that students are going into. The Master of Business Analytics program kind of lends itself to not only data science roles, but also, machine learning, operations analysts, even, working in tech as well. So a number of students go into consulting, tech, some into finance, pharma and biotech, as well as retail and consumer packaged goods. The data represented here is representative of the class of 2019. The 2020 class data will be coming out very soon, but is sort of equally diverse in where students have gone on to work. All right. And then, we'll talk, sorry. This is a little clunky, I apologize. All right, so now I wanted to dive deeper into the evaluation process or the admissions process. So, when you're applying to the business analytics program, every application is considered and reviewed by a member of the professionally trained admissions committee. In terms of the process, we don't look at any applications until after the deadline. So you have up until the day of the deadline to submit your application. And then after that, we start diving into all of the applicant data. The admissions committee is comprised of professional staff on both the admissions and the MBAn program team, as well as a number of different faculty members who teach in the program. And the way it works is every application is reviewed by the committee. Those initial reviews determine who is invited to interview. So an interview is a required step in the process. Interviews are by invitation only. Typically, we send out interview invitations, about 4 weeks or so after the deadline, gives us a chance to review all of the data. And then we'll conduct interviews this year throughout the month of February. And then the interview process we'll kind of dive deeper into in a minute. But overall, what are we looking for? In an applicant, we're looking for evidence of demonstrated success as well as leadership attributes. And so demonstrated success for us, is demonstrated through academic rigor, academic accomplishments, extracurricular activities, as well as some professional exposure. And then in addition to that, we're looking at leadership attributes. So that is, how do you work in a team? Are you able to solve problems and inspire others to agree with the solutions that you're proposing? Are you willing to kind of challenge the status quo and look at, alternative solutions that might not be the most common path? And then how do you help to kind of motivate yourself as well as your colleagues to pursue and achieve the goals that you're setting out for each other? And so we dig into each of these different attributes throughout the reading of the application and through the interview process. So the application itself is all of the different components are listed here. We are looking for candidates to submit a one-page resume that's sort of a summary of your internship and research experiences, as well as any extracurricular activities that you've been involved in. We do ask for you to respond to short answer questions or an essay style question in the written application. And then there's actually an additional short answer question if invited to interview. And it's really, we'll touch on this in a minute, but it's, why are you interested in pursuing the business analytics program? What is it about your past experience coupled with the opportunity to study at MIT that will help you to address and achieve your goals? We ask for 3 letters of recommendation. We'll get into the details of the specifics of that in a minute. We do have a requirement for you to submit all of your past academic records, as well as any non-degree coursework you might have completed that is relevant to what we'll be teaching here in the business analytics program. we do ask if you've taken the GRE or the GMAT to submit that. And then in the application, there are 2 video response questions, and we'll touch on those in a minute. And applications are, the deadline is January 7th. As I said before, no applications are looked at prior to the deadline, so you have up until the 7th. And then after that, the evaluation process begins. So we'll touch on each of the components here. So a resume is designed for us to learn a bit more about, your experiences to date, both in and outside of the classroom. So any, research and or internship experiences that you've been involved in are important for us to look at, as well as any leadership roles you've had in extracurricular activities. We're interested in, if you have been working full-time, how you've been, able to have an impact in the organizations that you're working at, maybe less of what your job description is and more of what the results or the impact is that you've had in the organizations and activities that you've been a part of. The essay question is asking you to describe why you're interested in pursuing this degree and what you're hoping to gain from the program. What are your career goals after completing this 1-year kind of deep dive in data science and analytics? It's important for us to not only admit people who have a strong, set of competencies that we're looking for, but also, understand what this business analytics program at MIT Sloan offers, understand what the culture and the community is like here. And we want people who want to study and take advantage of everything that MIT has to offer. So, in that essay, we're asking for you to not only summarize your past experiences and motivations for the future, but also, sell us on why MIT Sloan is a good match for you to achieve your career goals. We do ask for 3 letters of recommendation, and then there's some specifics behind what we're looking for here in these letters. So since the majority of applicants are coming directly from an academic environment, we are asking for you to include at least 1, if not 2, letters from an academic source. So more specifically, a faculty member who has been able to work with you on a subject that's of a quantitative nature. So someone who can speak to your quantitative abilities and academic achievement and potential. The 3rd letter should come from someone who is really of your choice. So if you have significant traditional work experience from internships, or you've graduated and have been working full-time, then we would certainly like for this 3rd letter to come from a professional source. But if your work experience or experiences to date are more of a research focus and less in a professional context, that's fine. Then maybe that 3rd letter should also come from an academic source. So it's really up to you to decide how to manage that 3rd letter of recommendation. For those candidates who do have more traditional full-time experience, they've graduated several years ago and they've been working full-time, it's up to you on, whether or not you want 2 letters from a professional setting and only 1 from an academic source. But most importantly for all, it's important for your letters to speak to your quantitative abilities. And then all of the letters of recommendation have to be submitted through the online application. The link through the different application portal is sort of easy to follow. And just a reminder that, all letters must be received by that January 7th deadline date as well. So academic transcripts and relevant coursework. So as I mentioned before, we're interested in seeing a summary of all of your academic experiences to date. So, obviously any courses you've taken that contributed to any of the degrees that you may have earned or are currently earning right now. But in addition to that, any relevant courses from non-degree paths as well. So we know a number of you have taken, Coursera or online courses that maybe have helped you to build out computer programming skills or machine learning or statistics. So if these are areas that you've been able to work on through a certificate program or through different online initiatives, we certainly want to see evidence of that if it's not already represented in the transcripts for the degrees that you've been pursuing to date. And so if you are currently pursuing a degree, you're applying in the January deadline, we would love to see the results of your fall semester. If that's not possible, the time you submit a transcript demonstrating the classes that you were enrolled in through the fall semester, and then you're welcome to send us an update transcript once those grades come in. And so this year, test scores, due to the COVID-19 pandemic and, accessibility issues with testing, we will allow for candidates to apply this year without a test. So, or if you've taken any other type of, tests or have professional certifications or MicroMasters, anything that you have that you feel could be relevant to us in understanding your analytical and quantitative capabilities, you're welcome to include in the application this year. If you have taken the GRE or the GMAT, we do encourage you to include that. But if you have not taken it, you will not be penalized in the process this year. We understand there are accessibility issues related to GMAT and GRE, and want to be as flexible as possible with candidates, and will not negatively impact a candidate that does not have a test score this year. So two parts of the application that, happen to be some of my favorite components of the application, but I realize create some anxiety for students, are the videos. So the first video you have complete control over. We are asking you to submit a 60-second video of you introducing yourself to your kind of hypothetical future classmates in the business analytics program at MIT Sloan. We just want you to upload a 1-minute video that's 60 seconds or less, of you talking kind of directly to the camera. Selfie style is perfectly fine. With you kind of helping us to understand who you are, that will take us in a path that explores maybe beyond what we can already see on your resume. So, where are you from? What's important to you? Why are you excited to be at MIT Sloan? This is not a video that's intended to have lots of editing or subtitles or music. It's a one take, unedited, you speaking to the camera. It can be very simple. The main tip I have for the video is make sure that we can hear you while you're speaking. So that means if you happen to be outside in a windy or noisy location, just kind of wear headphones to the microphone so you can make sure that we can hear you. The second video is a little more interesting. It actually does not require any preparation in advance. It's really just a tool for us to, analyze how you respond to a question without any preparation. How do you kind of think on your feet? How do you communicate in a succinct way to a question that anybody could be asked? So the video 2 question appears in the application after you complete all the other components of the application. And so this will be a question that you have that appears on the screen. You have 60 seconds to review the question, and then automatically the camera goes on and you have one take to respond, and it's a 60-second response. And it's really a question like, why did you pursue the major that you're in? Or, why, what was your favorite, place to vacation and why? We have kind of a number of different hundreds of questions built into this system, and it will just sort of randomly select a question, give you the prompt, and then you have a 60-second response. And it's not designed to be scary. The main thing is just make sure you have a strong internet connection and that the microphone is working so that we can hear you in response to this. Unfortunately, we can only give you one chance to do this, so we cannot allow for multiple takes. So the main, tip for this is just make sure that, you have a strong internet connection when you record your response to this question. And then preparing for the interview. So after, we review all of the applications, we determine who to invite to interview. We're usually interviewing around 30% of the applicant pool, and then we hope to admit about half of the candidates that we interview. And so the interview is a combination of behavioral questions as well as some technical questions and possibly some computer programming, prompts. And then prior to the interview, you are asked to answer an additional short answer question, asking you to talk about a recent analytics project or analysis that you conducted and include a visualization to go along with it. And so, prior to the interview, your interviewer, who's a member of the admissions committee, will have reviewed your application, and the interview is really structured. It's very much for us to get a better sense of some of the experiences you've had to date, how you've been able to work in a team or in a collaborative way in order to achieve success in the experiences that you've had so far. And then beyond that, some technical questions. And those technical questions are not meant to stump you in any way. It's really about us understanding how you kind of dissect a problem and then put the pieces together in order to solve for the problem. We're not asking you to, calculate to a specific number. It's more about how would you put or structure a response to a technical question. And then, if we sense that you don't have a strong background or much experience in computer programming languages, we may ask you a question about that as well. And then some just additional tips for the application process. So, the main thing to remember here is that as I, sit here and then as we receive applications, review these applications and interview you, we are looking for reasons to admit you to MIT Sloan. So give us the tools and the data that we need to support your admission. We are your advocates in the process. As you meet myself and my colleagues on the admissions committee, it is so exciting for us to get to know you better and learn about all of the amazing things that you've accomplished. And we are here to admit you and bring you into the MIT Sloan community. Ways that you can help us to do that is by doing your homework and helping to not only present a strong case for the skills that you have, but also couple that with why are you interested in joining us at MIT Sloan? What is it about the business analytics program at MIT that makes it a good match for you? Certainly attending events like this can help you to kind of customize your response. But in the interview, as well as in your essay, we're looking for you to give us evidence of what MIT Sloan offers that matches with your aspirations. Other simple things are follow the directions. If we ask for a one-page resume, just include one page, not three. For the recommendation letters, we're asking for academic sources that can speak to your quantitative abilities for a reason. So the more you can kind of align your choices of recommender, that helps us to have the tools that we need to support your admission. Try to be authentic and be yourself in both the interview and in the videos that you're presenting. We're trying to get to know who you are on an authentic level. And then finally, as I mentioned to start, think of us as your advocate as we, work together as an admissions committee to gather the data we need to admit you. And then this is just the timeline. So the application deadline we mentioned before is January 7th. We'll take, 3 to 4 weeks or so to review and analyze all of the application data. And then we'll send out interview invitations. Usually those invites go out late January, early February. In fact, we will give you the date you would expect an interview invitation on when you apply, but I don't happen to know that date offhand at the moment. But typically interviews will happen throughout the entire month of February. And then we have our final decision meetings where we come together and look at not only your written application as well as your interview results and look at all of the kind of robust data that we've collected in analysis of your case. And we have those meetings in early March and then release decisions by March 4th. And then you'll have until April 15th to reply to the offer. If admitted to the program, we'll continue to offer all different types of opportunities for you to engage with not only current students and alumni, but also faculty and different academic advisors and members of the whole business analytics team in the interim. All right, so now I would like to open it up for questions. I know that there's lots of Q&A that have been coming in through the chat, but I'm gonna pull that up as well and try to answer some questions live as well. So does having work experience help you in the application process? So, having work experience is nice, but it is certainly not required. We're looking to understand, why you're motivated to pursue the business analytics program. For some, that motivation has become more pronounced because of the experience that you've seen in the workplace. But work experience is not required for admission. It's really, dependent upon your kind of unique collection of experiences. I wouldn't say it helps or hurts you, but it can definitely help to shape your story and your motivation for pursuing the degree. about how many people in the program, about how many people apply to the program, and what is the acceptance rate. Okay, so the application process each year, we have seen an increase over the years of applicants to the program. Last year, I think we had around 1,500 candidates apply to the program, and we seated 60 students in the class. So it's a competitive process. But each year it does vary a bit, and there's still a lot of uncertainty this year as well. So we'll have to see. We'll see what this year brings, but it is a competitive process, certainly. Let me see. Do we have to know programming languages like Python and R prior to applying to the program? So it is not required that you know these programs in order for admission, but if you do not have a background in these programs, it's likely we would suggest that you pursue some foundational learning or exploration with both Python and R, even Julia and SQL as well, only because we do offer some boot camps and some resources to get you up to speed, but there's not a lot of time to kind of build out those skills once the program starts. So, again, not required for admission, but strongly recommended prior to matriculation. What are we looking for at the interview stage, and what percentage of applicants will be invited to interview? So I kind of went through this a little bit already, but the interview, we typically interview around 30% or so of the applicants who apply, and we're looking for a combination of evidence of these, behavioral attributes or leadership attributes, as well as some technical questions. And certainly we'll ask, why are you interested in applying to the business analytics program? Kind of making your case or yourself, or why are we a good match for you. Let's see, do I recommend submitting any coding projects as supplements to the application? Unfortunately, I don't. So, we're interested in awards you may have received, or summaries, or, you including in your resume, maybe some of the projects that you've worked on, but we don't have the time to go through the individual examples of all the different analytics projects students have worked on. What if I will have most of my math courses after the application deadline? So if you know what your course schedule looks like for the spring, you can certainly include that in your transcripts or in kind of the supplemental relevant coursework section. It's fine if you don't have grades yet. You can just indicate that you're currently enrolled in them. What conversion metric should I use to convert my GPA to a 4.0 scale? So actually, we're not asking you to convert your GPA. You can just report it as is. So we ask for what your GPA is, what the scale it is, graded on, and then we ask also for your class rank. So we're pretty familiar with lots of the different education institutions and grading policies across different undergraduate institutions. So you don't need to convert it for us. Sorry, things are jumping around here as you're all voting for different questions. Let me see. I've been working for 5 years. Is having at least one academic recommender for a letter of recommendation a strict requirement? So, it's your call. You're the person that knows your experience best. If you feel that, you have enough technical and quantitative support represented by asking only professional recommenders, then that's up to you to make that case. All right. For candidates without computer science and related backgrounds, what factors have helped them to stand out in the admissions process? So we're looking to admit people from all different backgrounds. I mean, earlier on, you saw the class profile and the different, backgrounds represented there. Students who are coming into the program are expected to have a foundational set of quantitative abilities that can be demonstrated from a lot of different examples of coursework and through majors. But you are applying to a rather technical degree at MIT, so we are looking for a foundational set of skills. All right, sorry, I know there's lots of questions coming in here. Does a past supervisor or research internship count as an academic reference or a professional? So, a past supervisor in a research internship could count as an academic reference. It depends on the nature of the work. Well, the candidates who deferred their admission last year hurt the availability of seats this year. So we actually don't have many people who deferred their admission. There is a handful of students, but the majority of people we admitted last year accepted the offer and came regardless of the COVID situation. I don't expect it to have a significant impact. Will we be notified if we're not selected to be interviewed? So yes, everyone will receive an updated decision status from us by sometime in late January, early February. I don't know the specific date yet, but at the date we release interview invitations, we'll also release final decisions for those not invited to interview. Oh, all right, let's see. Maybe I'm going to have one of my colleagues come on and ask questions because things keep jumping around a bit and it's hard for me to see. So either Katie or Reed, would either of you be willing?
Hi, Jen.
Hi,
Yeah,
Reed.
I'm happy to pop on and share one that I have here.
Okay.
So someone just asked a little bit more about the COVID situation, kind of what classes might be looking like in the fall, but also maybe a little bit more about what they looked like this year.
Yep. So an update on COVID. So this past year or this current fall, every student who was interested in taking classes on campus for a portion of their courses was able to do so. And in fact, all 60 students in the business analytics program were here on campus and took a portion of their classes live and in person. We did wrap the fall semester up in terms of we ended the in-person component of the fall semester a little bit early, and we're wrapping the fall semester up in a virtual format. So about 2 weeks ago, we transitioned to a virtual wrap up for the fall semester, and then the spring semester will be similar. So the spring semester will be a portion of classes will be taught in person. Some of them will be virtual, but for anyone who wants to be on campus and in person in the spring, they'll be able to do so. We don't really have any decisions yet about how the program will be rolled out beyond the spring semester, really just in anticipation of the situation with COVID improving. We hope that we'll be able to offer more in-person opportunities come next fall, but decisions about the way the fall will be structured likely won't be announced until sometime in summer 2021. Any more questions?
Perfect, thanks. I just had another question come in. Someone was wondering about what you mean in the section that asks if there's any areas of concern within your background.
So there's a couple different spots in the application you can address issues that you might want us to better understand, both in the academic and the employment section. There's short answer text boxes that could be used to address extenuating circumstances as it applies to either academics or work experience.
Great. And we've answered a couple related questions to this in the chat, but we're getting quite a few just wondering a little bit more about financial aid, scholarships, fellowships, and things like that.
Yep. So the business analytics program is actually an amazing value. So it is a 12-month program. There are, some limited fellowships available, but what's quite unique about it is the capstone project and the $20,000 tuition offset that comes along with the capstone project. In addition to that, many students in the program, 30 to 40% or so, in fact, hold research assistant roles. And that can be a semester long or a year long position working to support research that a faculty member is doing that's related to analytics and data science work. And you would apply for those research assistant positions at the, towards the end of the summer prior to matriculating or once you begin the program.
Perfect. We have had quite a few questions just on a few more logistics on uploading additional documents like certificates or non-degree transcripts, where that goes and how to make sure that's accurately reflected.
Yep. So in the relevant coursework section, which is beyond where you upload transcripts, there's an upload section that allows you to include any additional information related to, relevant courses. So we ask you to highlight relevant courses in 3 specific categories: machine learning and statistics, math and computer programming. But anything there that you feel is relevant could be included in the upload section of the relevant coursework and or in transcripts as well.
Could you share any tips or advice for reapplicants or anyone who was maybe waitlisted last year?
So we understand this is a competitive program to get into. We often see people reapplying, and we like that. We want to see that people want to be at MIT Sloan, and we understand that not everybody can get here on their first try. And so, we're looking for an update or any improvement in what you've been doing since the time you originally applied. Reapplicants actually have an additional text box they have access to complete to address, what's different from last year. And then in your application, you should just keep in mind that likely we'll have access to your original application. So this is your chance to submit all new information to us, new recommenders, updated resume, updated essay on why business analytics is a good match for you, because we will likely reference the original application as well.
Great. Do you also have any tips for someone who's maybe in the earlier stages in undergrad and how they can build a strong resume if they're thinking about applying to this program in a few years?
Sure. So, as more and more coursework becomes available related to analytics, machine learning, big data, taking, courses during your undergraduate studies that will give you a foundational toolkit to be able to kind of dive right into PhD level data science courses that are offered as a part of the business analytics program. That strong academic foundation is always going to help support you, as well as if you have the opportunity to pursue internships or research related to the field, that will also help to kind of give you more insight into how to sort of put your story together and advocate for why this is a program that matches your career aspirations.
We just had a question come in, and I saw one a little bit earlier about this too. If you can provide just a little bit more context about the MBA and the Master of Business Analytics degree, kind of how did that come about, the combination of the business and the data science, as well as why it's a 12-month format versus it maybe a little bit longer.
Yep. So this is really designed to be a professional degree that helps you to, step into kind of an accelerated role early on in your career. So certainly there's lots of different data science programs, PhD programs, and computer science and data science as well. But this is a unique combination of having the foundation and the network and the resources of the Sloan School of Management, as well as, the Operations Research Center and the technical skills that you'll be building in the elective course and core classes that you take in business analytics at MIT Sloan. And really the program, although it's young, but I think we're going into our 5th year now. It was really designed to meet a market need. Organizations like McKinsey, like Google, like large tech companies, biotech companies, pharma companies, saw a need for candidates who are early on in their career that needed to have more technical training in big data, artificial intelligence, machine learning. And so this is a program that helps to support the need of many of our organizations that we partner with, not only for the Capstone project, but also who are typical industry hiring companies.
Back to a more kind of technical logistical question. A couple people have just asked if their school doesn't provide a class rank, how do you fill this out in the application?
You can just leave it blank. If there's no class rank, that's no problem. But if it does appear, on your transcript, or if there is a class rank within your major or within your graduating class, we would like to see it.
Perfect. And then we had a question about, and I know you've touched on kind of the types of courses we're looking for, but someone's wondering, would you kind of go through and look at individual coursework and those grades, or how a low GPA would that automatically reduce your chances? Basically, just asking, how do you look at the transcript and go through that, also compared to GPA?
Yep. So certainly we're looking for success on the transcript as time spent at school increases. We're looking for grades to improve. Otherwise, if there's a reason for a blip in performance in a given semester, you can certainly address that in the additional question section in the academic section. But we're really looking for sort of evidence of quantitative skills, evidence of intellectual curiosity, a foundational set of skills in math and statistics, potentially in computer science or programming if you've taken courses that help, those courses that support your degree, a quantitative foundation.
Perfect. We've had a couple just follow-up questions clarifying on kind of the interview stage. Someone just wanted to clarify, will the technical questions in the interview require you to solve a problem, or more like describe a previous project or research experience?
So both. So we will ask you to solve problems, and we will ask you to present and include a short answer response prior to the interview, but only something that you can include if invited to interview, summarizing a recent analytics or data science project you've worked on, as well as maybe a visualization or two to help support that analysis.
And can you go over very briefly, we think a few people joined late, just the video prompts again, what the two are? You don't have to go into too much detail because I know you went into that already.
Yep, so there's two different videos. The first one is just to introduce yourself to your future classmates. You have control of that video, designed to be a simple, one take, unedited video of you, introducing yourself to your hypothetical future classmates. And then the second video only becomes available for you to respond to once every other component of the application is complete. And that video does not require any prior or advanced preparation. They're really, general short answer questions. That video is a tool for us to kind of analyze how you respond to something quickly, how you kind of think on your feet, if you will, as well as a way for us to better analyze your communication skills.
We've had a couple questions about class size. Are there any plans to make the class size bigger? And is there a particular reason why we like to keep it as a smaller program?
So this is the business analytics program is still a young program at MIT. We are only in our 5th year, and the program started in a much smaller size and has been 60 students now. This is the 2nd year, and we'll go into a 3rd year of 60 students next year. The goal is to keep it, the size of a cohort or 60 students. I think, in the future, there is the possibility of the program expanding in enrollment, but due to a number of different factors at this point, we have been incredibly successful so far, and we will continue to maintain that 60 student enrollment for next year.
Perfect. I can probably give you one more question
Perfect.
if that works with you.
Yep, perfect.
You've obviously touched on kind of the different areas that we're looking for. Can you just elaborate a little bit more on how much extracurricular experience is weighed in within an application?
Yep. So, extracurricular experience is important. We're definitely interested in how you're spending your time outside of the classroom. Hopefully, it demonstrates your kind of intellectual curiosity if you've been involved in hackathons or different types of competitions or startups you've been involved in. Student organizations and awards that you've received are also important because they're good indicators of academic success and quantitative creative, ability. And then we're also looking for, potential evidence of leadership skills in some of these organizations. So, if they're not of a technical nature, but you're involved in, a sorority or a fraternity or an honors program or, a number of different things, we're looking really to see how you're able to help teams solve problems, how you're able to kind of work with your peers, gain buy-in and create impact. All right. Well, I'd like to thank you all for joining us today. I am conscious of time and I'm going to wrap things up. I know that we were able to answer a number of your questions today, but here on this slide is provided our website as well as an email address. If you did not get specific answers to your questions, feel free to reach out to us and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. And then we'll make sure to get this webinar posted to the web in the next few days. So thank you all so much for joining us today. It was a pleasure to connect with all of you. Thank you to my colleagues, Trish, Katie, and Reed on the back end for helping to answer all of your questions. And, we're really looking forward to getting to know you better throughout the admissions process. And don't forget, our job is to advocate for you and admit you. So help us to have the tools we need to do that. Thanks so much.